Hey guys, VanGorden with FCP Euro. Today I'm going to show you how to replace control arms and ball joints on a 2001 to 2009 Volvo S60, 2001 to 2007 V70 or XC70, 1999 through 2006 S80, or a 2003 to 2014 XC90. Let's get started. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you jack up your car and secure it safely. Then you're going to want to remove your wheel. After you remove your wheel, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to remove the nut for the tie rod. Next, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get this caliper out of the way. So I'm going to remove the two 15mm bolts, and I'm going to zip tie it to the coil spring on the strut. Just be careful because there's a steering stop that will fall if you don't catch it. Next, you're going to want to remove the ABS wheel speed sensor. There's going to be one 8mm bolt. They use 8mm on the later cars. You may actually have a 10mm bolt depending which year you have. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that bolt. And then I'm going to remove, on the other side here, there's going to be a rubber grommet in the bracket. You can't miss it. I'm going to remove that and get the ABS wheel speed sensor out of the way. Next, I want to remove the center axle bolt. 13mm. Again, depending on which year you have, you may have a 14mm. We're going to remove the strut bolts. This is a dust seal. You can just take it off, put it to the side for now. Also, I recommend to use a bungee cord just to support this axle to make sure it doesn't move in and out, and also to suspend it so it's not in your way while you're replacing the lower control arm. Next, you're going to want to remove, it's a 21mm. This is the lower ball joint nut. That's what holds it in place into the control arm. When you remove this, be careful and make sure you have a hand on the knuckle. This is the last bolt that's holding it in place. Next, we're going to remove the knuckle from the lower control arm. Now we have the load off the control arm with the steering knuckle. It's been removed from the control arm. The next step, we're going to want to remove these three control arm bolts. We have two 15mm and one 18. On most models, I want to say 2001 through 2006, this is going to be a 17mm. Let's remove those now. Next, you're going to have an 18mm bolt on the back of the control arm, and up top is going to be a 21mm nut. Next, before you install the new control arm, you're going to want to swap over the steering bump stop on 2007 through 2009 models. It's a press-in style. So basically you could just go in and squeeze these with some needle nose pliers and just remove them. They'll come out the bottom. On 01 to 2006 models, I believe it's held in by 12mm bolts. Once we swapped over the bump stop, the steering bump stop, we're ready to install the new control arm. You need to tap it into place. You always want to thread these in by hand first to make sure you don't cross thread. Next, just tighten these bolts. Just tighten up the back bolt. Now that all your control arm bolts are snug, this would be a good time to go and tighten or torque your bolts. Now comes the most difficult part. Everyone always has a hard time with these ball joints. They're not sure the proper way or how to get them off the knuckle. I'm using air tools. I will show you the method that I use. You may be able to use a punch and hammer to get it out. But let's get this thing off. There's gonna be two 13mm bolts. Next we're gonna get our air hammer. And if you look, there's just a little bit of a ledge here. You want to get right on that ledge. And your ball joint's going to come right up. Next, it's time to install our ball joint. There is a press tool that you're going to need for this to do it the right way. The reason for this is the tool goes right over the boot, so you make sure you don't make contact or rip or damage the boot. And I'll show you how to use that. First, you want to put the ball joint roughly into place. The ball joint tool is going to come with two indexes. I'm going to thread the indexes into the steering knuckle until they bottom out. Next, you're going to put the ball joint tool right over. And with a mallet, tap the ball joint into place. You'll know it's seated when there's no more gap between the ball joint and the knuckle. You want to back out your indexes. Hand thread in your new ball joint hardware. And lastly, you want to tighten up the two bolts for the ball joint. Next, we're going to take our steering knuckle and drop it right into the control arm. While you have one hand resting, thread on the lower ball joint nut. Tighten your lower ball joint nut. Now we're going to install our dust seal. We're going to unbungee the axle. You want the thread into the steering knuckle. It's a splined union there, so make sure it splines right into the knuckle. Next, we're going to compress. Put your nuts on. We're ready to unzip tie our caliper and caliper hanger from the coil spring. Just got to cut those. Don't forget to stop. Next, we're going to install our ABS wheel speed sensor. After we hand threaded the wheel speed sensor bolt into the knuckle, now we can tighten it. I like to spray this grommet with a little bit of like silicone spray. And the reason, it's going to make it much easier to get back into the loom. Next is your tie rod bolt. And lastly, your center axle bolt. Alright guys, so that's how you replace the control arms and ball joints on a 2009 Volvo S60. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach us at products@fcpeuro.com.